So if you've been around the channel for a while, you'll know that I'm a big Virtua Fighter fan, and I actually made a video on Virtua Fighter 32X. I really love that game. I think it's a really good representation of the arcade game. Sure, the graphics are dumbed down, quite a bit, but the gameplay is just rock solid. And I remember being a kid and just being amazed that my 16-bit Genesis could essentially run a 3D fighter through this 32-bit attachment. And I remember being a kid wanting to play, these Saturn 3D fighters and PlayStation 1 3D fighters. The PlayStation had Battle Arena Toshinden, Tekken, Virtua Fighter was on the Saturn, of course. So I always wanted to play these games, but the money wasn't there and I just couldn't afford a new system at the time, and neither could my parents. So it surprised the hell out of me walking into a Toys R Us once and seeing Virtua Fighter 2 for the Genesis. I remember just being baffled, like, how in the world did they do this? What does this game look like? And I remember Toys R Us had these little plastic things where it would show the box art and then you flip over the plastic and it would have the back of the box. And I remember flipping the back of the box over and just kind of staring at it for a minute. And in my little head, I probably didn't say this out loud or anything, and I probably didn't even say these exact words, but more than likely I thought something along the lines of, what the fuck is this? A 2D fighter? This is not Virtua Fighter. Now don't get me wrong, I love 2D fighters. You guys know I love Street Fighter. Mortal Kombat at the time was pretty fun, but Virtua Fighter to me was a 3D fighter, and seeing it dumbed down to a 2D fighter was just baffling to me. How could this be good? It's gotta be garbage. I don't wanna play it. And I never played it as a kid. I actually never played it until a couple of weeks ago. One night I was up late watching CGR and watched Mark's review of Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis, and he seemed to kind of hold the game in a decent high regard. So I got interested and made the plunge. If you watch the pickups video, you'll see that I picked up Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis. So what's this game all about? Is it any good? Is the green screen messing up on the green part here? Of course it is, but let's delve into this game and see if Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis is worth owning. When you start up Virtua Fighter 2, you notice that the game says Virtua Fighter 2. 2, as in the second game. Yet, let's take a look at the roster. Oh look, it's all the characters from Virtua Fighter 1 and none from Virtua Fighter 2. I'm not really sure why this game is called Virtua Fighter 2 then, since it doesn't have any of the characters from that game, but whatever. As you can see, this is a 2D fighter, and at first it looks pretty sluggish. To be fair though, Virtua Fighter isn't really a fast-paced game, it's more based on being tactical with your attacks. Once you stop trying to play the game like a Street Fighter and start playing it like a Virtua Fighter game, the game does begin to click and things make a lot more sense. The character models look decent enough, although they are lacking some animations. The backgrounds look pretty good and the sound effects are decent as well. You can tell this game was a bit of a struggle to put on the Genesis, as the system was coming to a close on its life cycle, but Sega managed to churn out a respectable and fun fighting game on the console. They also managed to put in all of the moves of your favorite characters, which I was pretty impressed with since the diversity is pretty wide ranged. Fighters like Akira are based in martial arts, where someone like Wolf does wrestling moves, so it's cool to see things like his suplex made it into the game. The game does have one big issue though, your final fight. Facing off against Doral is a chore because you're underwater, which slows the game down and is really a pain in the ass to deal with. The ride up to Doral though is smooth sailing, and I found myself pleasantly surprised with Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis. So honestly, Virtua Fighter 2 on the Genesis surprised me. I expected to hate the game, and initially I did. I wasn't very impressed with it, but the more I played it, the more I grew to love it. Yes, it was a 2D fighter on the Genesis, but the gameplay was still there. The cartoony graphics weren't all that bad, honestly, for the Genesis, and the music was pretty decent, although a bit out of place in most matches. I really enjoyed the game though. It's a super cheap Genesis game, and it's a really solid fighter. Definitely a game you guys should check out. Yes, the Doral level is terrible because of the slowdown and the underwater effect is just poor, but up until that point, it's a pretty fun game, and like I said, it's cheap. Yeah, it's missing characters. Yeah, it's not the best fighter on the Genesis, but definitely check it out, especially if you're a Virtua Fighter fan, because I was pleasantly surprised with it. Let me guys know what you think of the game. If you've played it before, if you haven't, let me know if you're going to. Make sure you like this video, leave me a comment down below, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. I'll see you guys next time. Later.